What the hell is this? Yeah, this. I didn't know that this was a thing. And it's called poverty core. Oh my goodness. Now I live under a rock, a really big one. And I just learned about this, so we are going to dive deep into how rich people like to cosplay poverty and then they dress like this. Oh, welcome to Misfit Grit. Hey there, everyone. So I didn't know what this was. It came in my feed the other day. Someone had a shorts and I was like, what the hell? This is an actual thing. Now, I knew that wealthier people cosplay poverty or they cosplay revolution, and I've spoken a little bit about this. So while I'm darning one of my husband's socks, because that's actually what people in poverty often have to do, is repair and mend our clothing. And darning a sock, if you don't know, is creating a little woven patch in the hole where his gigantic, scaly man foot has eaten through the sock. So I darn socks in the winter, and that's what we're going to do. I currently don't have power either. This is the second day that we haven't had power, so it's a little dark in here, but you're going to be all right with that. Poverty core. What the hell? Oh my gosh. Now, this is apparently an aesthetic, a type of style, and this woman in this picture, this Magnolia Rose woman, she's kind of like the poster princess for it. And she dresses as though she's a disheveled home bum, essentially. What's a home bum? Well, home bum, if you live in a city, you know what they are. They push shopping carts around. And I use that term because I, myself, was homeless a number of times. I lived on the streets a number of times. I was one of those street kids that you see flying a sign, spanging on the corner, sleeping in vehicles, sleeping in abandoned buildings. And yeah, sometimes people look like she's going for that aesthetic, and that we looked like that because we're in poverty. The layered clothing is to stay warm. The baggy clothing is because the clothes don't fit, or maybe there's holes in them, and you have to layer multiple layers over top just to stay warm enough to try to survive. Now, I've known artists who have a similar aesthetic, right? And I know people that are low income and have similar aesthetics, and that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about in poverty core, or as I've often call it, cosplaying poverty, is wealthy people, and I mean extremely wealthy people, like the kind of people who can spend hundreds of dollars on a garment. They try to look as though they are low income, and they mimic the dressing style of it. And do you know why they do it? They do it because what they're trying to co-opt, what they're trying to mimic and copy is the grit and the character and the tenacity and the personality that a lot of us have adopted when we go through hard times. Now, people who are wealthy don't go through hard times in the same way as those of us who are like, which bill am I going to pay this month, right? How am I going to get my kids snow boots? Whatever it is, like everybody has their own issues that we struggle. And especially as things are getting more and more expensive, it's harder for families or people who live alone to make a go of it and survive. This is a slap in the face. Because as we know, the rich are getting richer and we are getting poorer. Now, poverty core has been around for a long time. I'm going to link an article down below, and in it, it explains Marie Antoinette of France, let them all eat cake. She apparently had a peasant's village constructed so she could go cosplay peasantry when she wanted with her the courtiers of that time. So this kind of stuff is not new. It's not like it's just to our overconsumptive era. This seems to be something that's really ingrained in the privileged people, that they want to like mingle with the proletarians. They want to get down with us and act as though they're one of us when it suits them, right? When it's either entertaining or it can give them some like checks of how badass they are, or like, I can totally hang out with the regular people because I'm not a snob. So maybe there's that going on. This is something I've seen personally with people. I saw it this year in my local resistance movement when, people who were wealthier and very highly educated and associated with a university that I live near, cosplaying that they were struggling to make ends meet. Cosplaying it in a way so that they could get up in front of a crowd and try to like rally the troops because they were pretending that they had fallen on hard times, basically mimicking and taking on the language of the labor movements from 100 to 150 years ago, when there was really strong labor movements. And there's a really strong history of it here where I live in Michigan's copper country. Big strikes in the early 1900s, really devastating consequences in some stories. And so what I saw was people who were very wealthy, right? Had wealthy parents, had lots of degrees, had very stable incomes, very nice houses, complaining that they couldn't make ends meet. But really what they were saying is they were just taking the language of the working class, of the people who actually struggle, and they were whining. And if you read between the lines, what they're actually whining about is that they can't go on too many vacations, or it was really hard to buy that mountain bike. And the things, those extras that those of us like myself are like, I can't even fathom being able to pull that one off, because I have to make sure that my propane tank is filled, right? I have to make sure that my daughter can go to dance class and all the things they have to pay for. And as a working class family, my husband is a mechanic and I am a radical homemaker. We have 5 young children under the age of 10, and we also have a small farm that produces the bulk of our food. That means we work really freaking hard. So it's easy to take very strong offense when you see images like this one, because it's clearly making, I don't know if the word mockery is correct, but it's incredibly insensitive. So when I saw this image in particular, this one of this man looking like he's hanging out at a train hop out spot, that's offensive. Because in real life, if you're hanging out at a space like that, you probably have an addiction problem, which means that your life is not going well. It means that you might be living on the streets. And when I use the term train hop out spot, what I'm actually talking about is a spot where homeless people congregate. It's full of drugs, the really yucky ones, as well as alcohol and lots of abuse and danger. People congregate there to try to hop onto freight trains to get around the country. These are not nice places to be. They smell like urine, and you're going to witness people at their very worst. Now, cosplaying poverty is something that I picked up on that wealthier people do, so that they can try to add some depth and character to their souls. There is a concept of unearned privilege, and I know plenty of people who have it. And it means that they really haven't had to examine their lot in life. They're entitled to it, and everything's just pretty good because, well, that's the way it is. It's just really good for me. And if it's not good for you, it's probably your own fault. Or if you happen to be on the liberal side and it's not good enough for someone else, they might virtue signal. Liberals tend to do a lot of virtue signaling, and it's really repulsive. It's easy to pick up on, and it's very superficial. And they, when the rubber hits the road, they do not do what they say. So cosplaying poverty is a way for a really shallow person with a very underdeveloped sense of character to try to take on the characteristics of those of us who have had to slog through the mud. Not just once, not just twice, but a whole hell of a lot of times, and we're still gonna have to do it next week too. Right? It doesn't end for a lot of us. There is no cavalry coming to help us bail us out. We have to be strategic. We have to put up with all kinds of issues, such as classism for one, but especially if you're a person of color, my gosh, you have to put up with all the racism on top of that. All kinds of issues that those who are more privileged don't have to deal with. They don't have to learn how to navigate that. They don't have to come up with the skills. They don't have to recover from the trauma that comes with living in poverty or, facing those systemic issues like I mentioned. Like, for goodness sake, what people of color have had to deal with in this country, what people who look like me have put them through, like, it is disgusting and abysmal to try to pretend that you're down there making a go of it when you get to, at the end of the day, you never have to worry about if your belly's going to be full, if you're going to be warm, if your bills are paid, if everything's going to work out, because you have the bank account to back it up. In my household, we use everything until it is used up. I know people who have sold items for big bucks on eBay, particularly like punk rock vests. I used to run in a punk rock circle, and we all had our vests and our, paraphernalia that we would put on to signal who we were and, all that culture. And you can sell that stuff online. And I still have a few items that are very heavily patched that I had sewn on myself and modified myself. I don't really dress like that anymore, but I still have them. And the thought has crossed my mind to try to sell them, I guess, but I don't think I ever would because it's just gross. I really find that gross. And the idea of some yuppie wearing clothes that I wore when I lived on the street so they can cosplay that they're badass, that's really gross to me. Hey, look, the power just came back on. Hooray! I find it completely repugnant that human beings are capable of such callousness towards each other. To really want to take on an identity of people who have struggled so much in order to feel as though you're not as hollow and shallow as you actually are, rather than doing the work to be like, I wonder why I feel so empty inside. Right? That's work that needs to be done. Examining privilege is work that needs to be done, and only the privileged can do it if they actually want to make a difference. Right? Virtue signaling by the elites, especially on the left, that ain't gonna solve the problem. The problem is going to be solved by the people with privilege examining how the hell we got to this point. And one of the reasons that I left my local resistance movement, and I've spoken about this before, is because I saw a lot of elitist liberals cosplaying in this very way, virtue signaling in this very way. But when it came down to actually listening to people with issues, actually wanting to hear what people of the working class were thinking and feeling and going through, I didn't see any of that. Absolutely not. Especially if it challenged their position of power. Now, people with unearned privilege, they don't have this skill to think about, how did I get here? How did my parents get where they're at? How did this all happen, and what have I taught to my children? They don't have that skill because it's not necessary for them to survive. And they all coagulate around each other and prop each other up and say, we're just amazing. We're just donating our money. We're just saying all the right things so that we can help. Let's go to brunch, anyone? I can't stomach these people because of their hypocrisy. And I'm incredibly unpopular in these circles because it's really hard for me to show up more than once and keep my mouth shut. The level of privilege and lack of grit that these people have is exactly why we have the economic situation that we have. It's exactly why the liberals, the Democrats, lost the working class. And now they are the party of elitists. But I hope that if you're watching this video, that you get it, no matter where you sit on the socioeconomic spectrum. If you're a person of more means and you made it this far and you're not in a triggered rage fit, I applaud you. You must be doing the work. Excellent. I like that. Just because a person does have more means does not automatically mean that they are a complete and total nincompoop. Although the odds are stacked against you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. There are plenty of people who are humble and caring and who do walk the walk and talk instead of just talking the talk, you know? It happens. And those are the change agents, and those are the people that give me hope. And for the rest of us, we'll keep darning our socks. We'll do what we need to do to get to survive. And hey, maybe if you have some ragged old clothes laying around, it looks like you can sell it to these buffoons. And maybe you can make a few $100, you know? Pay your power bill and whatever you need to do. It's worth a shot, eh? I don't see anything wrong with it. You gotta do what you gotta do. So hang in there, everybody. It's utterly ridiculous what's out there, what the upper classes resort to, and what they're perpetuating in society. But we got this. So thanks for watching, and take care.